Revealed, how a woman mechanic turned skepticism into 100K with incredible motor mastery. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, where the faint smell of fresh asphalt mingled with the sweetness of summer, Sarah Thompson felt the weight of expectations pressing against her chest. At 24, she wasn't just a mechanic, she was a beacon of perseverance. But the community around her whispered doubts, voices scratching like nails on a chalkboard. A woman in a garage? They would scoff. The shadows of her father's dreams loomed large, casting uncertainty on her path. A proud Vietnam veteran, he envisioned a future for her that echoed blue-collar pride, not the grease-slicked world she loved. Every day, as she turned wrenches and listened to engines purr, she poured her heart into the work, a ballet of mechanics under fluorescent lights. The clanking sounds were music to her ears. Yet every time she glanced up, she'd catch the raised eyebrows of passers-by, the disapproving nods from old-timers at Jeb's diner down the street. And there was the knot in her stomach, knowing that her father couldn't understand why she would choose the road less traveled. "You should focus on something more suitable," he would say, concern etching his weathered features. But Sarah had a fire inside her, a flicker that grew with every repair and every challenge. One day, news buzzed through town about an upcoming competition that promised a life-changing prize of 100K, a ticket to the future she dreamed of. Heart racing, she felt an electric thrill. This was her chance, not just for herself but for every girl who dared to dream beyond the ordinary. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just days before the big day, Sarah's world tumbled. A trusted friend, supposed to be her support, revealed her betrayal, mocking Sarah's passion in front of everyone at the garage. "You really think you can compete with the big boys?" She had laughed, leaving Sarah gasping, her dreams thinning like smoke. The weight of that moment sank in, almost too heavy to bear. Could she even stand on that stage and show the world what she could do? In a sea of disbelief around her, Sarah began to realize the true stakes. This wasn't just another chance at a trophy, it was a chance to carve her name into the hearts of those who doubted her. Standing in front of the mirror, she straightened her back, eyes blazing with determination. She pictured that 100K trophy not just as gold, but as the key to self-acceptance. As competition day loomed closer, doubts tangled with her resolve. She could feel the whispers grow, but they fueled something in her, an unyielding intensity. Could Sarah prove them all wrong? Would she fight for her dreams against the tides of tradition and expectation? With tools in hand, she was ready to step into a spotlight that felt more like a battleground, where only courage would lead her to victory or defeat. The world was watching, and her chance to redefine what it meant to be a woman mechanic was finally within reach. The sun broke through the early morning fog on competition day, casting a warm, golden light that bathed the town in a soft glow. But for Sarah, this brightness only mirrored the tumult of emotions swirling in her chest. All night she had paced the small confines of her room, rehearsing her strategies, welcoming the rhythm of each task she intended to conquer. Yet with each tick of the clock, her nerves clawed up her throat, reminding her of the weight of all those expectations. Standing in front of her truck, a battered but loving piece of machinery, she took a deep breath. Sarah felt its familiar pulse under her palm. The engine had been her canvas, its parts, her brushstrokes, and she understood it better than anyone. "You've got this," she murmured to herself, her voice barely a whisper. But inside, a storm raged. The spectators had gathered, their eyes not just on her but on the very idea she stood for. As she approached the venue, the smell of gasoline and burnt rubber filled the air. It was intoxicating. A crowd buzzed around her, some wearing the determined looks of competitors, others merely there for the thrill. Yet, Sarah noticed a handful of familiar faces, including some of the old-timers from Jeb's diner, their expressions hovering between skepticism and intrigue. She swallowed hard and squared her shoulders. Let us show them, she thought fiercely, with her heart pounding. Sarah entered the competition area. The tables were set, each station filled with gleaming tools and sizzling engines. She felt their watchful eyes settle on her as she found her spot. Their whispers filled the air, fragments reaching her ears. She'll never make it. What a joke! Each word reverberated in her mind like an echo of her friend's mocking laughter, but then she remembered the shimmering trophy and what it meant, not just the money, but proof of her grit. This is for every girl who dreams. She told herself, channeling that anger into focus. The first challenge was a head-to-head tire change competition. Sarah watched as one by one, her competitors flew through their tasks, hands deftly maneuvering. As they finished, the roar of applause surrounded her, and with it, doubt crept back in. Can you really do this? The voice in her head whispered cruelly, but the moment she touched that first wrench, everything else faded away. The world narrowed down to the task at hand. It was just her, the tools, and that stubborn bolt waiting to yield. She could feel the sweat trickling down her brow, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of labor. The seconds ticked by as her fingers danced, moving methodically, each motion a declaration of who she was. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupted. She glanced sideways, a fellow competitor had already finished. Panic flared, but she pushed it aside. Just keep going, she reminded herself, and she slammed the wrench one last time. Victory! Sarah stepped back just in time to see the judge's hand go up, signaling the end of the round. Her breath caught as she looked around, searching faces for approval instead of judgment. Then it hit her, all those whispers didn't matter. She had stepped up and fought. That alone was worth the battle. As the next round was set to begin, she felt a surge of confidence swelling within her. Maybe today would be different after all. With every bolt that turned, she yearned for that trophy, but more than anything, she craved acceptance not just from the world but from herself. Unbeknownst to her, across the crowd, her father stood, a deep frown creasing his brow. His heart ached with a mix of fear and admiration. What he had once deemed unsuitable was now unfolding before him in ways he never imagined. Sarah took a deep breath, the next challenge looming large in front of her. Could she summon the strength required? Would this contest finally silence the doubts that haunted her? The air around her vibrated with potential, a spark igniting deep within her soul. And just as she prepared to step into the next battle, she could hear a voice from the crowd, loud and unmistakable, "You'll never win." It wasn't just a challenge, it was a call to arms. Could she drown out that voice and emerge victorious against the tide of expectations? The next challenge began, and the stage was set. The moment Sarah heard that taunt, the world around her began to fade, blurring as adrenaline surged in her veins. She stood at her station, the clamor of the crowd shrinking into nothingness. The only sound that echoed was the rapid thud of her heart against her ribs. As the judge blew the whistle, she snapped back to reality. The challenge was underway, a complex engine-to-go-kart conversion that would test not just her mechanical skill, but her creativity. Her hands instinctively reached for the tools, but for a fleeting second, doubt clawed at the back of her mind. What if she failed? What if all those voices were right? She shook her head, banishing those thoughts like clouds in a summer sky. "Focus, Sarah," she whispered. "This is your moment." With each movement, she felt her rhythm return. She measured, cut, and assembled with precision. Her hands worked quickly, her mind racing ahead to the next step, picturing each piece fitting together in beautiful harmony. She could feel the energy in her muscles, the way the tools became extensions of herself. Each turn of the wrench felt like a shout against the doubters, a declaration that she belonged here. Glancing at the competitors, Sarah noticed some of them were having trouble. They were losing precious seconds fumbling with their parts. That spark of hope ignited wider. "Keep going," she thought, pushing through the sweat rolling down her back, each flick of her wrist steadying her resolve. Minutes passed like heartbeats, but what mattered was the progress she made. The cheers from the crowd felt like surges of electricity, fueling her determination. When she glimpsed her father from the corner of her eye, the deep lines on his face told a story of concern mingled with wonder. She wanted to turn and smile at him, to show him her spirit, but she had to keep her eyes on the task. The whistle blew again, signaling the end of the challenge. She stood back, chest heaving, and watched as the judge moved from station to station. Her heart felt like it was dancing. Here we go, she thought uneasily as he approached her cart, but as he examined her work, his brow furrowed in concentration. The other competitors had mixed success at best, but they had also greeted the challenge with confidence. Watching them felt simultaneously empowering and disheartening. Then the judge surprised her by moving closer and tapping a few parts of her creation. "Nice work here. Solid build," he said, nodding imperceptibly. It struck her then the glow of accomplishment radiating within was almost blinding. The competition was fierce, but she was in the race, standing strong against every odd. The applause rang out, louder and richer with each passing moment. People around her were starting to notice, the murmur of disbelief mingling with intrigue. She dared to believe this could be it, not just a win, but a statement, but just then, a voice, lower yet louder than before, called out, "Even if she gets through this, she won to last in the final round." That voice, echoing from a few feet away, threatened to unleash the wave of doubt once more. But this time, Sarah simply turned her attention back to the challenge ahead. She had come too far to let anyone snatch the momentum away. The next challenge awaited, a test that would push her even further. Taking a deep breath, Sarah locked eyes with her father again, seeking encouragement in his glance. She could almost see him nodding. He believed in her, even if he didn't quite understand yet. Would this contest finally prove her worth? Her next task, a full engine assembly, loomed ahead like a daunting mountain. Could she conquer it? Every struggle had led her here, and she felt the joy of possibility blooming in her chest. As the final whistle took the place of the crowd's roar, she stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would that lingering skepticism drag her back? The tension in the air was electric as Sarah shifted her gaze from the judge to the engine parts laid out before her. Each component gleamed under the stark fluorescent lights, an assembly of potential waiting to be molded by her hands. The whispers of the crowd faded to a dull roar where all she could hear was the rush of her heart, beating a rhythm of defiance within her. With her mind set, she knelt by the workbench, her fingers brushing over the engine block, feeling the cool metal beneath her touch. This was where her journey began, and now it was time to push her limits even further. She grabbed a ratchet with certainty, laying out her plan in her head. Step by step, she reminded herself, just like before. As the whistle blew again, announcing the start of the new challenge, she felt a surge of anxiety tangle with excitement. The enormity of the task almost swallowed her whole, but she had fought through doubt before. This was her moment. The engine assembly became a puzzle, and she was determined to piece it together with triumphant precision. She focused on each step, connecting the crankshaft to the block, tightening bolts, and ensuring everything fit perfectly. Each sound of metal clanging against metal resonated like music. The clock ticked mercilessly, but the countdown became secondary to the rhythm in her hands. The noise from the crowd shifted, and she could feel eyes on her competitors who had laughed off her chances now turning curious. She could sense that hesitation in the air, a flicker of respect beginning to form as they watched her hands fly. Don't focus on them, she reminded herself. Just move. Each connection brought her closer, closer to the completion, closer to proving herself. But then, a dull murmur swept through the audience, and she glanced up, catching snippets of snickers and muttered doubts amidst supportive cheers. And she thinks she can really finish? A voice taunted, dripping with scorn. Injecting herself with the determination that had driven her all day, Sarah turned back to her work. She gripped the wrench tighter, not allowing the negativity to seep into her mind. "I belong here," she whispered fiercely, "and I will show them all." In her concentration, time lost meaning. There was only the engine, only the determination to bring it to life. As more bolts slid into place, the shape of the finished assembly began to emerge, breathing life into her ambition. Just as she completed the final attachment, she pulled back to assess her work. The engine sat steadily on the table, gleaming in triumph. Her heart raced, filling with a mix of pride and disbelief. She had done it. The judge approached her again, a look of genuine surprise crossing his face as he inspected her work. She held her breath, waiting. If this was the moment that confirmed her place in this competition, it could also be the moment that set her path toward her dreams. He tapped a finger on the side of the assembly. "Great job, Sarah," he said, his tone more respectful now. "Let us see how this performs in the next round." A wave of relief washed over her. The crowd erupted into applause, her father's cheers ringing out as they echoed around her. But that lingering doubt from earlier twinged at her heart again. Could she really keep this momentum going toward the final round? "You'll face tougher challenges," her competitive instincts warned. "Don't let success blind you." Sarah nodded, bolstered by the moment but aware of the next trial looming. She felt the weight of the crowd's expectations, and a chill shot through her spine. If her earlier triumph felt like a mountain climbed, the summit of that next challenge loomed higher than before. As the crowd's excitement swelled with anticipation, Sarah stood taller, determination burning brightly in her gut. She wasn't finished yet. With the final round ahead, it wouldn't just be about proving herself. It would be about truly transforming everything she had believed about her worth. Would she shatter every doubt, or would the looming challenge send her tumbling back? The air around her crackled with possibilities, and she was ready to find out. The sound of the crowd faded as Sarah took a deep breath, focusing on the judge's words echoing in her mind. "Let us see how this performs." The nerves prickled inside her, but she was ready. The next round wasn't just about building an engine, it was about making it roar to life. She glanced over at the other competitors, each of them uniquely skilled and exuding confidence. Her heart raced as she watched a fellow contestant tighten wires around a complex set of gears. They were all driven by the same fire, the same aspiration to win, and yet, she felt a flicker of isolation creeping in. Did she dare believe she belonged here? "Stay focused," she reminded herself, commanding clarity over the chaos. The clock had reset, and the rules of this round were laid out starkly before her. Test the engine. Push it to its limits. As the whistle blew, Sarah sprang into action, moving with a blend of precision and urgency. The engine, now complete, needed to be tested. Each adjustment drew more gazes, and Sarah could feel the heat of scrutiny pressing down on her. But amid that pressure, she clung to her resolve. "You can do this," she muttered under her breath. Now at the testing station, she watched her engine pulsate with untamed energy. Her hands danced over the controls, adjusting the fuel mixture. The crowd leaned closer, anticipation crackling in the air. Would it start? Would it hum to life under her command? With a shaky breath, she turned the ignition key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life. The sound was thunderous, sending a ripple of applause through the crowd. Elation rushed over her, swelling her chest. She hadn't just built that engine, she had ignited a belief inside herself. But then, the engine sputtered again, the roar fading into a hesitant growl. A wave of panic washed over her. No. Not now. She thought, fingers twitching at the controls. She needed to troubleshoot quickly. What had gone wrong? Heart racing, she leaned forward, scanning the gauges, desperate to find the solution before time slipped away. "Come on," she whispered to the engine, her voice barely audible above the din. She felt the crowd's eagerness shift to anxiety. A series of glances exchanged among competitors told her they were silently betting against her. But she wouldn't give in to that doubt. She closed her eyes for a second, anchoring herself. What they thought didn't matter. All that mattered was the bond she had built with the machine. Suddenly, a memory flashed in her mind. Her father bent low over a similar engine when she was a child, his face lit with that same passion. His words echoed, "Trust the machine, Sarah. It knows your heart. Just listen." Inspired, her eyes snapped open. She turned a knob, adjusted the carburetor, and then twisted the ignition again. This time, the engine responded like thunder, a powerful surge making the ground vibrate beneath her. The crowd erupted into cheers, not just for the engine, but for her resilience. Yet, even in that moment of triumph, another competitor emerged, their engine roaring even louder, driving home the point. She felt the exhilarating high swing right back to the tense anticipation of potential defeat. What if my best isn't enough? That question loomed large, a dark cloud hovering just out of reach. Focus on your journey, she reminded herself. The next challenge was lurking. The stakes already felt dangerously high with the showdown ahead. As she stood there, adrenaline coursing through her veins, she knew one thing for certain: she wouldn't let this moment define her. Instead, she'd let it fuel her. Sarah's journey was far from over, and she was ready to prove that she could rise to meet every challenge placed in her path. What emerged in the final round was uncertain, but one thing felt crystal clear: she no longer fought just for acceptance. She fought for herself, to take her place unapologetically in a world that often tried to silence her. The crowd's cheers swelled as the next round approached. "Bring it on," she whispered, determination glinting in her eyes. "I won T. Back down." The question lingered in the air: could she push through and seize what she truly wanted, or would the final challenge be too great? The time to find out was fast approaching, and Sarah was more than ready. The whistle blew again, slicing through the hum of anticipation. Sarah squared her shoulders, steeling herself as she stepped up to the final round's station. The air buzzed with nerves and excitement, but she felt like she was in a bubble, her thoughts racing faster than she could keep up. This was it. This was where everything had been leading, taking her place at the pedestal. She glanced at her engine, the culmination of weeks, no, months of hard work. Every bolt, every wire had been meticulously chosen, crafted, and meshed together with her own hands and spirit. It was just metal and mechanics, but to her, it was so much more. She looked around, her competitors' engines gleaming under the bright lights, each more impressive than the last. Suddenly, she felt a twinge of self-doubt creep in. What if they're all better than mine? The thought lingered, heavy and unwelcome. But then she remembered her connection to the machine. She couldn't let fear overshadow the journey she had fought so desperately to take. "Focus," she murmured again, her heartbeat steadying as she opened the toolbox full of her tools. The first task was to push her creation to the edge, to take everything she had learned and see it pay off in real time. Sarah tightened her grip on a wrench and took a breath, grounding herself in the moment. With determination fueling her fingers, she began making adjustments. Each click of the tools was a reminder this was her realm, where she thrived and felt alive. The crowd watched intently, breaths held as they witnessed her working through the challenges laid before her. Time flew by, the seconds ticking down ominously as the final evaluations commenced. A voice in the crowd called out, snapping her focus. It was one of her competitors, smirking as he leaned against his engine. "You think you can handle this, Sarah? You might want to sit this one out." Laughter sprung up, spilling out like a tidal wave of ridicule. But she refused to let it engulf her. Instead, she met his gaze with hers, silence falling around them as the tension wrapped the arena in an electric charge. "This is my moment," she thought fiercely. Fueled not by anger but by a newfound resolve, she finished the last adjustments to her engine. As she did, memory washed over her father, his gentle encouragement, the way he'd taken the time to show her the beauty of mechanics. "Just believe in what you create, Sarah," he used to say. "That's where real power comes from." His voice was a lifeline, pulling her back from the brink of doubt. With a deep breath, she flipped the ignition switch. The engine roared to life again, a deep growl that shook the ground beneath her feet. But this time, it felt different, alive, almost as if the machine itself recognized her passion. The crowd erupted in applause, and Sarah felt a rush of relief, joy, and energy that left her nearly breathless. But one look across the arena revealed her competitor's engine still louder, still roaring more fiercely. The doubt came rushing back like a wave, threatening to pull her under. Was it enough? Just trust it, she whispered to herself, not just to the engine, but to the very essence of who she was. It all hinged on the final testing. She needed to push it harder than ever before, to let the results speak louder than any taunts. As she prepared for the ultimate test, she glanced at the clock. Time was running out. There wasn't a moment to waste. With her heart pounding in her ears, she made the final adjustments, praying that she hadn't overlooked a single detail. With the countdown reaching its final seconds, she closed her eyes, visualizing her father's pride and hope. Opening them, she locked her focus on the machines before her. Could she stand strong against the competition that sought to challenge not just her abilities, but her very worth? Her engine was more than just a piece of technology. It screamed for recognition. Just as she did, the crowd held its breath, and Sarah knew the moment of truth was coming fast. Would she break through or shatter under pressure? The silence enveloped the arena, pregnant with expectation, and Sarah whispered a prayer for the courage to face whatever came next. When the countdown hit 0, the atmosphere shifted, thick with suspense. Sarah felt every eye on her, the weight of expectation pressing down as she settled into her stance. It was the moment she had envisioned, the culmination of her passion and relentless pursuit of excellence. She blinked hard, clearing the haze of nerves, reminding herself of the journey that had brought her here. She took a step forward, heart hammering in her chest, gazing at her engine. The polished surfaces gleamed in the floodlights, reflecting the determination etched into her very being. The roar of excitement and fear intertwined, creating a melody she had come to know well. With her fingers trembling slightly, she pressed her foot onto the accelerator. The engine responded with a potent growl, vibrations coursing through her body. This was it, her creation was alive. The crowd erupted, cheers blending with the throaty purr of the machine. She felt the joy swell within her, a warmth blooming that made her whole journey worth it. But then, in a twisting instant, her competitor's engine roared even louder. It thundered through the arena, each rev mocking her own. Her confidence wavered under the relentless din, and an icy knot formed in her stomach. Why did I let myself think I could stand a chance? She chastised herself, glancing furtively at the other engine. Doubt clawed at her mind, growing more defined, more consuming. In that moment of weakness, she remembered her father again, the way he always found magic in machines. It's not about the noise, Sarah. It's about the heart. What really matters is the connection. Clenching her jaw, she forced herself to breathe. He was right. Pushing the fear aside, she focused again, turning outward. She noticed the crowd held onto every reverberation, leaning in, eyes wide with anticipation. A wave of urgency washed over her. No more second-guessing. She had come too far. Okay, Sarah, you can do this, she whispered, believing not just in the engine, but in herself. The mechanic sang her story from the early days, working side by side with her father in their cluttered garage, the late-night struggles when everything felt like it was slipping away. And through it all, her drive had been unwavering. Taking a deep breath, she pushed down harder on the throttle, letting out a primal scream of energy. The engine let loose, climbing higher, faster, a raw and beautiful sound that pierced through the air. Each burst feeling like a direct challenge to the wild beast of her competitor. She noticed the crowd's gasps, the way they leaned forward. They could feel it too, her passion, her intent. But just as she began to feel a surge of pride swell within, a dreadful rumble emanated from her creation. A warning light flickered on the dashboard, a terrifying reminder of how easily things could spiral out of control. She felt the heat of panic claw at the edges of her mind. Not now, please, not now, she prayed. With swift and decisive hands, she began to troubleshoot, her mind racing to assess the issue. The clock was ticking, the moment slipping away. She had to trust the training that had gotten her this far. She let out a breath, allowing courage to wash over her like a balm. The rhythm of her heartbeat matched the steady pulsing of the engine, a mantra of hope, forgiveness, and resilience. This was the battle not just for victory but for acknowledgement, for her worth. Would this be where her journey led to triumph, or would she falter in her moment of need? Sweat beaded on her brow as she leaned into the uncertainty, every heartbeat echoing the quest for clarity. And just like that, as she reached for the right tool, the crowd erupted into a frenzy of cheers, but amidst the noise, what she truly needed to hear lay hidden. Could she decipher what her machine was trying to tell her? The silence from her thoughts crashed against the swell of raw emotion around her. The stakes were higher than ever, and she had to make a choice: would she yield to fear, or would rescue her chance at greatness? The roar of the crowd surged like a wave, washing over Sarah as she crouched in front of the dashboard. Time felt elastic, stretched taut and ready to snap. She could hear her heart thudding in her ears, a drumbeat urging her on. Each second was a lifetime, a precious fragment she couldn't afford to waste. The warning light pulsed ominously. She focused on it, her thoughts narrowing to the specifics. Could it be an oil pressure problem? Had she miscalibrated something? Panic and adrenaline surged through her, battling for dominance. "Come on," she muttered through gritted teeth, her fingers dancing across the knobs and levers, searching for the answer within the chaos. She could almost hear her father's voice guiding her, the soothing timbre reminding her of their time together in the garage, the smell of gasoline and metal filling the air. "Trust the machine, Sarah. It will tell you if you listen." She closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. Instead of allowing the anxiety to drown her, she remembered the hours spent hands-on with engines, each sound, each vibration telling a story. She opened her eyes again, determined to connect. As she leaned closer, she noticed something: a slight flicker behind the gauge. There it was, the clue she'd been searching for, a small coolant leak. Her heart raced, but not from fear, it was a rush of clarity. "Okay, I can handle this," she whispered resolutely. With nimble fingers, she retrieved a wrench from her tool belt, feeling the familiar weight of it settle like a promise in her hand. For the first time since the warning light appeared, she felt hope blooming in her chest. She knew exactly what she had to do, and the steps she needed to take began to unfold clearly in her mind. The crowd's excitement morphed into a distant hum as she concentrated. A few feet away, her competitor was revving the engine, a cacophony ringing out that felt somehow both triumphant and hollow. With deft movements, Sarah tightened the leaking joint, quickly checking for any surrounding issues. Adrenaline surged through her veins, the world felt electric. With every click of her wrench, she forged a bond with the engine, a conversation that only they understood. It wasn't about who could make the loudest noise, it was about the harmony they created together. As the last twist became firm, she stepped back, her breath steadying. The warning light remained off, and for the first time that night, the engine purred with satisfaction. "Let us turn some heads," she said, her confidence growing palpable. She climbed back into the driver's seat, her palms resting comfortably on the steering wheel. The vibrations beneath her felt like a heartbeat, ready to respond. "You and me," she said softly, looking at her engine, "we've got this." As she prepared for the next round, she noticed the crowd's collective energy shift once more, anticipation crackling in the air. They were hungry for action, ready for a story. With a jolt of determination coursing through her, Sarah stomped on the accelerator. The engine roared back to life with a fierce growl that sent shivers down her spine. Pulsing with the thrum of possibility, she drove forward, aiming straight down the track. But just then, a shadow moved in her peripheral vision. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she caught sight of her rival diving ahead, the sleek machine tearing past her. It pushed her to her limits, just out of reach. "Not today," she growled, pouring every ounce of will into her performance. There was more at stake now than just winning, it was for her dreams, her father's legacy, her very identity. As she barreled towards the next curve, anticipation danced on her skin. Would she summon the strength to take over the lead? Or would the doubts once again take hold? The finish line loomed closer, visions of hope blurring with the reality of fierce competition. Sarah gripped the wheel hard, ready to push past the finish line, but what awaited her there, in the final stretch? The roar of the engine echoed in her ears, drowning out everything else. In that moment, there was no crowd, no rival, only Sarah and the asphalt stretching out before her like a ribbon of opportunity. The cars raced on, but she could feel the urge to catch up, to reclaim her place. Adrenaline surged, electrifying her senses. Each turn felt sharper, each curve a challenge that beckoned her to conquer. Sarah kept her eyes locked on the road, a promise embedded deep within: she would not let this chance slip away. Her heart raced in sync with the roaring engine beneath her, a raw determination driving her forward. As she approached the next bend, she took a deep breath, visualizing every angle. She expertly drifted the car just as they practiced, feeling the tires grip the asphalt. Come on, she urged, leaning into it, coaxing her machine for just a little more speed. She felt her body pressed against the seat, each moment magnified in her mind. She was in the zone, an exhilarating rush coursing through her veins. But the thrill was laden with pressure. If she lost control, all she worked for would vanish. Ahead, her rival was pulling away. Panic flickered in the back of her mind, but she quickly squashed it, channeling every ounce of resilience she had learned from her father. She recalled how he squeezed her shoulder, saying, "You're stronger than you realize, Sarah. Sometimes you just have to believe it." Then she remembered something else. They used to talk about racing strategies, times when going against the wind meant playing it safe until the right moment. She scanned the road, sensing the rhythm. This was her moment to embrace their lesson about patience. With grit, she leaned back, allowing her competitor to be the lead for a heartbeat longer. Instead of forcing her way through, she used the time to analyze, checking the spacing. Her instincts kicked in as she noticed the rival's car swaying slightly. It was just the edge she needed. As they neared the final stretch, the air crackled with anticipation. Sarah shifted, readying herself. Her hands tightened around the wheel, and she felt her breath catch. The finish line loomed. The crowd's cheers swelled like a tide, threatening to pull her under, yet she focused on that thin line ahead. "Now!" she shouted, muscles coiling as she slammed the accelerator. The engine exploded with a voice of fury, surging forward as if it had been waiting for this moment. She shot past her opponent, a vortex of colors as she left them in the dust. Her heart soared as she crossed the finish line ahead. Silence followed before the crowd erupted in ecstatic cheers. She could hardly process it, disbelief and joy swirled together. But deep down, she knew. This wasn't about the trophy or the thrill. This was a testament to everything she had overcome. But then, a harsh voice cut through the celebration. "That was lucky," someone shouted from the sidelines, skepticism draping over her moment. "You can't keep that up forever." For a second, doubt creeped in like a shadow, darkening the light of her victory. Did they really believe she'd gotten lucky? Or was it true? As she slid out of the car, breathless, she realized this was just the beginning. The world still questioned her. They didn't see her for the racer she was yet. With determination solidifying within her, she faced the crowd. "You think this is luck?" she said loudly, her voice strong. "I'll show you what it means to earn it." As the crowd's energy swayed with her defiance, Sarah's thoughts whirled at the new challenge ahead, not just on the racetrack but in proving herself to everyone watching. What lay ahead for her was more than racing, it was the pursuit of her truth and the dismantling of every doubt cast upon her. And as the cheers began to fade, a new fire lit within her. Would she find a way to push through the skepticism and chase after her dreams, even against seemingly insurmountable odds? The applause still echoed in the warm air as Sarah stood there, the adrenaline of victory thrumming through her veins. She had crossed the finish line, but the journey was far from over. The call of doubt lingered, whispering in her ear like a wasp. Was it really skill? Or was it just a stroke of luck? But deep within, she felt a strength that couldn't be taken away. Amidst the noise, she spotted her father, his face a mix of pride and disbelief. Slowly, as if magnetized, he made his way toward her. Sarah's heart skipped. Would he finally see her as she had always wanted him to? Sarah, his voice cracked. He paused, taking in the sight of her, vibrant and triumphant. You did it. You really did it. His eyes shone with unshed tears, an ocean of emotions crashing behind them. Thanks, Dad, she replied, a smile breaking across her face. I worked for it. It's not just luck. I can see that now, he admitted, shaking his head in wonder. I'm sorry for thinking you couldn't. The words hung in the air, pregnant with meaning. She stepped forward, and they shared a long embrace. In that moment, years of conflict melted away into a sweet warmth. But beyond the personal victory, the arena buzzed with murmurs of realization and respect. Sarah turned to face the crowd, who had watched her transformation unfold. She raised her hand, the trophy glinting in the sunlight. Thank you for believing. She shouted, her voice ringing with determination. This isn't just about me, it's about everyone who dares to follow their passion. All the girls dreaming of something more, this is for you. Cheers erupted, a swell of approval that felt like the embrace of 1,000 kindreds. For the first time, she could feel a shift happening in the hearts of her community. As the celebrations continued, Sarah noticed her former friend, the one who had doubtfully laughed during her struggles, standing amidst the crowd. Guilt etched across her face as she took a step closer. Hey, Sarah, I never thought you'd actually do it, she mumbled, shame tangling with regret. I did it because I believed I could. And I'm not finished yet, Sarah said, her tone steady yet not unkind. I hope you learn that it's never too late to rethink your doubts. The girl nodded, her expression shifting from defensiveness to understanding. That exchange was just a small victory, but it fueled Sarah's fire. She wanted to inspire others like her, those who felt like outsiders. Later that night, after the crowds dispersed, as she sat beneath the stars with her father, they shared stories. I always wanted you to be tough, to do what's right, he said quietly. But I see now that loving what you do, loving machinery, that was your way of doing it. And I can't argue with results. I've learned so much, she replied. It's not just about fixing engines. It's about carving your own road. I want everyone to see that. In that quiet moment, as fireflies danced around them, Sarah felt the change deep within her. The weight she had carried for so long started to dissolve, making room for a new kind of strength. She could be who she was, unapologetically bold, pursuing her passions with fire and purpose. The sun set beyond the horizon, wrapping them in a blanket of soft colors. She felt lighter than she had in years. The future shimmered ahead, a road paved with possibilities, challenges, and a community that was learning to embrace not just their differences but the richness they brought. That trophy doesn't just belong to me, she declared, looking at her father. It's for everyone still finding their way. And as dawn broke over her small town, Sarah Thompson was more than just a mechanic now, she was a pioneering spirit. With dreams as vast as the open sky, she was ready to inspire a generation to dare to dream, just like she had. This was just the beginning, and she couldn't wait to see where the road would lead next. Now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire your spirit and ignite your dreams. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more dreamers out there. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. What inspires you to chase your own dreams? Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share the fire of passion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Your voice matters.